All right, y'all. Welcome back. Episode 23 of Harrison Talks Pod. I hope you're having a great day today. Wow. 23 episodes. 23 is a big number in the NBA, isn't it? Who's the GOAT? Anyways, we are recording this on a Monday evening in America, a Tuesday morning, very early Tuesday morning in Thailand. And we have many games going on right now, some of which are teams that I'm going to talk about today. Our theme for today, our topic for today, Western Conference teams that might be in the play in, might get out of the play in, might be out of the playoffs altogether. So, thank you so much for joining me today. Subscribe and let's get into it. So, the first team I want to talk about today are the Phoenix Suns. And for every team I have one unanswered question. So, for the Phoenix Suns, one of the most interesting teams to talk about this year, one of the most unexpected teams this year on in a bad way is with the league's toughest remaining schedule and no real rhythm all season. Why should anyone trust the Suns right now? So, they've had some wins recently, but according to Tankathon, they have the hardest remaining schedule in these last 11 or 12 games. This has been the Suns' most difficult season, at least in the last 5 years, at least in the Kevin Durant era. They are in a three-game win streak right now, but everything this season just shows that they are very unsure about their long-term stability. The X factor, of course, is going to be Kevin Durant. Devin Booker in the loss to the Los Angeles Lakers, and um, did Luka did Luka Doncic play that one? Well, Luka Doncic's team expressed frustration, expressed concern with this team, and whether or not they can, win long term. So that's your star player saying that, your day one player saying that. The Suns are currently 34 and 37, which is 10th place. Bit surprised that uh, a 10th place team can have 34 wins, but that's similar to last season in the Western Conference. Western Conference is just too deep, too deep. For example, there are 5.5 games between second place and eighth place. So one win, one loss for a lot of these teams can um, make them go up or down by quite a bit. So, lack of confidence by the Suns. Of course, they have plenty of star power, and on paper, they look like a team that could win everything, could be the top of the West. So it goes beyond the X and O's. There is something that's fundamentally wrong with this team. Durant, as I said, playing MVP level. Excuse me. 42 points in the last game. Their bench has been looking better, whether it's Royce O'Neal, whether it's Tyus Jones. But how sustainable is it with the amount of issues this team has had with winning games this season? They did beat the Cavaliers, but the Cavaliers are on a four-game losing streak. Finally, just came back down to earth after having the three biggest win streaks of the season in the league. So we'll talk about them in just a more in a bit. So they can win against good teams like the Cavaliers. They can lose against bad teams. I guess the big question for them, looking towards the play-in, and then if they want to actually compete in the playoffs, is this going to actually compete with a top team in the West, let's say that. Because if they are an eighth place team heading into the playoffs, or I mean, they get out of the play in their eighth place team and they have to take on the Nuggets and their depth, where They can play big, they can play small, they can um, just throw a lot of different lineups at you. Is this team going to be able to compete with certain matchups, whether it's the depth of the Thunder, whether it's Nuggets trying to guard and contain Nikola Jokic? I'm not so sure, and I think fans of this team should feel this way as well. Of course, there should be optimism. Kevin Durant is playing one of his best seasons in his career, which is incredible at this point with age and injuries when he has played an MVP level. But of course, with fatigue, physical and emotional fatigue, inconsistent performances all around throughout the season, who knows how much this team can do. So kind of feel like I'm going around in circles. Let's finish this part up. Suns, 34-37, as I said. They are currently tied for 10th in the Western Conference with the Mavericks. They hold a tiebreaker with them. They are only 1.5 games above the Trailblazers for 12th place, and they are 8.5 games behind the 6 seed Warriors. So, pretty much with 11 or 12 games, well, 11 for them, games left. We can assume will not make it into sixth place, but they could very well be one of these play-in spots. Solid home record, 22-13. They are 12-24 on the road. Next up, I just mentioned them, and it's a team with a very different situation, the Portland Trail Blazers. My question for them: should the Trailblazers pump the brakes or embrace their young core's lots of surprising success later on and in the second half of the season for this team? Admittedly, haven't been watching them as much as a team like the Suns or a team at the top of the West, but when I've been watching them, it's always a treat to watch them with their young core and a great broadcasting team also. I forget the people that are over there. They entered the season full rebuild mode. Of course, full season after the Lillard trade and looking towards building their young core and possibly getting into that lottery. This current surge of good games includes a 4-game win streak and included big wins over teams like the Nuggets and the Grizzlies. Players like Denny Advia give this team a lot of positivity. Over the last 9 games, Denny Advia has averaged 23.7 points, 10.1 rebounds, and 5.1 assists, averaging 50% from three in the stretch. And in the last game against Denver, had 36 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, 8 rebounds. Chauncey Billups credited his fast pace for his success, and this team plays with a lot of pace overall. Very fun to watch. Just displaying confidence, displaying leadership, and improved physicality, improved playmaking overall. So you'd love to see it. Other young players as well have stepped up in this later half of the season. Players like Shaden Sharp, even players like Scoot Henderson that are making improvements in their offense and their playmaking is just great to see. They are 2 games back. I guess I should say 1.5 games back of the 10 seed. They are currently 32-40, and they have been young players like Abdia and Shaden Sharp that have discussed the play-in openly and the importance of chasing the play-in and trying to get there. So while I'm not sure what the long-term goals of this team might be, it sure seems like this team is trying to focus on success now and trying to have momentum for the future. So as I said, very fast-paced team. Um, Out-rebounded Memphis in their last matchup, 65-40. Had better perimeter shooting overall, so this team is playing well, playing with pace, and just outplaying a lot of their performers that should be defeating this team, of course. It's a push for the play-in. They could be sacrificing a lottery pick. Their pick is top 14 protected to Chicago. So, if they go for a play-in, they're not going for lottery. If they go for the play-in, they still might keep their pick. So, we'll see there. Is there tension in this franchise? I'm not too sure. Like, I'm not sure if there's tension between knowing if you should just stop now and just try to rebuild and say, we got 12th place. We've had lots of productivity. We have a lot of things to look towards next season. Let's look towards the lottery. Let's look towards what we can get in free agency. Or you take the momentum and say, let's try for the play in because this team has shown that we have to compete, even if the intentions are not to win a championship this year. They've been winning despite injuries, right? They missed Simons and Klingon and the Denver injury. Yeah, is it sustainable? Let's move ahead. I have to do it. I have to talk about the Dallas Mavericks. And my unanswered question, although it feels answered, is there any positivity left after the Luka trade and after all the injuries they've had with Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, and so many other players that required us talking about whether they would have to forfeit games. And, hopefully the league would have stepped in if that were the case, but it looks like this team is not going to do that. But let's talk about the Mavs. They are in the play-in situation, but what to do really. Anthony Davis is the reason why I'm talking about this team today. He's eyeing an early return. So for that, I have to say, what is the intention? Getting sent down to the G League, which I think is cool. I know in baseball we do it all the time, but I wish we could see more big pro players play and rehab in the G League just for selfish reasons. I think that would be cool just to be able to see that. Of course, Davis this season has been dominant. It was his best or second best season as a Laker before he got traded, and this has been one of his best seasons since his MVP years going all the way back to 17-18. 25.7 points per game, 12 rebounds, 2.1 blocks per game, all very close to where he was when he had MVP seasons. Competing in 5-on-5 in the G League, so all positivity there. Um, I'm not the only one that gets surprised that he's looking towards returning this season. And will the front office keep him out? You know, it's hard to say because if they're keeping him out, why is he rehabbing now? They did win a game against the Pistons recently, 123 to 117. Dallas had an interesting shooting night. Effective field goal percentage was 60%, 52% overall, but shot 35% from three. So pretty uneven. Good shooting night, not the best shooting night from three. 35 is decent, though, I guess. So, all right. Against Detroit, they made 27 free throws on 36 attempts, while Detroit only got to the line 19 times. Had a much better pace against the Detroit Pistons at 102.8. Their offensive rating was 119 against the Detroit Pistons, and they struggled with turnovers. Percentage was 17.3, but had offensive rebounds down the stretch that helped them close out the game. Spencer Dinwiddie had 31 points, 7 assists. PJ Washington, 27 points. Najee Marshall had a double double, points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. Klay Thompson had 20 points, but went 3 for 11 from deep. And Kai Jones, who I keep forgetting is on the Mavs, 10 points, 7 rebounds off the bench. Um, Only 16 bench points. Wait, Kai Jones started, I guess. 16 bench points. Detroit had 51. Did not see this game live, but yeah, very uneven game for a few different statistics. So, positivity, am I skipping over this? I don't really know. I mean, they'll look ahead towards the off season, and they're not going to have very much money there, if any at all. Do they go for the play-in? Not really too sure. Because you go for the play-in, your best case scenario is that you have a healthy Anthony Davis with hopefully some other healthy players that played the other night. So it's possible, but I would say if you had a healthy Kyrie, for sure. The team was playing extremely hard before that post the Luka trade, and I thought they were playing well with Luka. So it's so unfortunate. This was not supposed to be a play-in team. This was for sure not supposed to be a team that was going to struggle to make the play-in. They are currently 11th. They are tied in record with the Suns, but the Suns hold the tiebreaker. They are 34 and 37. They are 2 and 8 in their last 10. On the road, they are 14 and 21. So I guess best case scenario, um they could get ninth place. Best case scenario, I think. And then they're in the play in and don't really know. I guess my answer to this is not really. There's not really too much we can say on this team as far as being positive in this last 10, 12 games of the season. I'm going to talk about one more team from the West, and then I'm going to do lightning round for the bottom three teams of the West. The final team I want to talk about on its own is the Sacramento Kings, and a question is a bit different. The question I had in the pre-show is, can the Kings overcome Sabonis' injury and stay in the playoff race? Well, luckily, Sabonis is back tonight against Boston, so we'll see how he does there. Episode might be out after that, but anyways, how can I change this? The Kings have been perhaps the most confusing team in the West this season with inconsistency. It might be the Suns, it might be the Kings, but the Kings are always a team to me that seems like they should be much better than what they actually are, even though they are not a bad team to begin with. They are just a play-in team in perhaps the most competitive Western Conference like ever. But hey, leave me a comment, debate, and let me know what you think about that. So does return tonight, does return Monday. There's a lot of motivation for Sabonis to be playing, obviously with a potential play-in playoff team, but also he has to play 9 of the last 12 games to get all NBA honors. He currently has played 58 games, but two do not count because of the amount of minutes, I guess, leaving because of injuries. Of course, when Sabonis is playing, the offensive flow is better, defensive rebounding is much better. So, just really want him on the floor if they are going to want to compete after this regular season. They've lost the last 2 games. They blew back-to-back leads against Milwaukee. They led by 14 against Chicago. They had a double-digit lead. Struggling to close out some of these games down the stretch. Also similar to the Suns, they've defeated good teams, they've lost against bad teams. It's hard for them to put wins in a row together sometimes. So, just overall, this team has been kind of all over the place this season, similar to previous King seasons as well. So, of course, Sabonis being there is going to act as the anchor offensively, defensively. Without Sabonis, they have suffered on the defensive end and defensive rebounding. Before the 2 losses, they defeated the Cavaliers, and it might be because the Cavaliers have finally come back down to earth. As we said, they've lost 4 games in a row. I saw that uh, Garland and Mitchell are on the cover of Slam magazine, so perfect timing there, right? Regardless, 4 losses in a row, still way ahead in first place. That should tell you something about the success of that team. Anyway, this is a Kings segment. Uh, but it does show that the Kings are capable of defeating good teams or the best teams on given nights. So it should give some positivity there. Unlike the Mavericks, I think this team should be competing in the play-in because they're not they're not shooting for the lottery, so compete because I know this team in the beginning of the season, their goal was to be outside of the play-in, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen now. So the depth has shown flashes of good work with Sabonis being out, especially in their game against they signed Isaac Jones, averaging 3.7 points per game, 1.5 rebounds. They signed him to a 2-year deal, giving them more front court depth. I think that just shows that they are trying to do something this season. They're going to try and have depth heading into the play-in, then hopefully heading into the playoffs for them. So the Sacramento Kings are ninth place. They are 500, gets you ninth place in the West this year. They are currently slated to host the Phoenix Suns if the season ended today. They are 1.5 games ahead of Phoenix and Dallas, and they are 4 games behind Clippers for the 8th seed. Pretty surprised the Clippers are in the 8th seed, which with how well they've played in some of these games, maybe should have included them in this podcast, but hey, we'll talk about them next time. Lastly, I want to talk about the bottom 3 teams in the West, teams that are most likely out of the play-in, and 1 or 2 goals they should have looking ahead towards the offseason. The first team we'll talk about are the San Antonio Spurs. Of course, Victor Wembanyama out for the season, De'Aaron Fox out, Greg Popovich has been out the entire year. The worst health luck for any team this season, I think. And of course, if Wembanyama was healthy, they'd be looking towards the play-in or the playoffs. But without them, their season is pretty much over, of course. So, looking ahead to the offseason, what should the San Antonio Spurs do? They have to add depth around Wembanyama. Wembanyama has shown, even going back to the second half of his rookie season, that he's ready to compete. And this season, the Spurs made moves showing that they are ready to compete as well. They signed or they traded for? They signed Chris Paul and they traded for De'Aaron Fox. They're making upgrades, but they really need to make upgrades with shooting, of course, with defense, but they need to put more shooters around Wembanyama. I've seen lots of ideas thrown around. A top trade target that I think, that I've been seeing a lot is Cam Johnson. And Cam Johnson, I know, was a trade target for a lot of teams, in the trade deadline. Not too sure. I saw that Bleacher Report is reporting that the Nets are very interested in trading him, but it sure seems like, uh, the trade deadline showed that they weren't that anxious in trading him, and I think they might keep him heading into the offseason and next year because for a player that's a 3 and D player that has length and can stretch the floor, he's someone who fits in with pretty much every team. So with that, he will be a target from a lot of teams as well. He's not the cheapest. He's owed $42 million the next 2 seasons after that, but could fit into, the Spurs system. Yeah, I mean, 6'8", 18.8 points per game this season, has, UNC ties with players like Harrison Barnes. Although, if you're trading for him, Harrison Barnes might be on the way out. Plenty of assets, plenty of draft picks. I was very surprised in when they acquired De'Aaron Fox that they didn't give up players like Devin Vassell, Kellen Johnson, Harrison Barnes, in any of this. So it's hard to say what this team will look like next season outside of their top two biggest players. But could see some of them on the move for sure. Johnson makes a lot of sense. Of course, they need to add shooting, so that's what I would look towards with this team. I think that's all I want to say about the Spurs for that. Let's move right ahead then with the New Orleans Pelicans. New Orleans Pelicans could go many different ways, but hopefully their team looks different next season. With Brandon Ingram leaving, we can assume that Zion Williamson might be on the block as well. There were talks about that in the trade deadline, and there will be talks about that for sure in this offseason. When he's played, he has been a top 10 player. Played 30 games this season, only 214 in his career, has missed the last two games, just never consistent. If you're a New Orleans Pelicans fan and you're trying to go out to these games, it must be very difficult just not knowing, flipping a coin pretty much on whether you will see Zion Williamson or not. So, should the Pelicans trade Zion Williamson? I think so. I've been saying that for quite a while. It just doesn't seem like whatever you're trying to do has been working. It seems like the process is over. You moved on from Brandon Ingram. Let's move on from Zion Williamson and let's see if he can do better in a different environment. I'll give you one trade idea from Sports Illustrated because I think it's a lot of fun and I think it makes sense. So, proposed trade from Sports Illustrated includes Zion Williamson, Jose Alvarado, Jordan Hawkins heading to the Trailblazers for Shaden Sharp, Anthony Simons, Duop Brief, 2025 first round pick, and two trade exceptions, whatever that might be. Zion Williamson has averaged 24.6 points, 7.2 rebounds, 5.3 assists on 56% shooting on the 30 games that he has played this season. It would make sense for both teams, giving the Trailblazers their, I'll say young star. Yeah, young, but health wise, we'll see, and also gives a young, retooled core to the Pelicans, along with not giving up all of their assets. So, with this trade only, and you didn't make any other changes, of course you would in the offseason, this would look like a fun, young Pelicans team, not trying to compete, but has a lot of tools that you can put together to potentially go out and get a star player or just rebuild or just what you have. But it would for sure be an exciting league team if you had players like Shaden Sharp and Anthony Simons on a team like the Pelicans, which is already young. And let's talk about Utah Jazz. Utah Jazz has a crucial offseason, and I have hope on what this team is going to do. Patience for the Jazz. I think patience has been the way I could describe the Jazz these last 4, 5 seasons or so. So, do they stay patient and build around players like Kante George, Walker Kessler, Taylor Hendricks, or do they move Kessler finally and try to rebuild, look towards the lottery, which they are doing this season? And the lottery is going to might change a lot of these questions depending on who gets that first overall pick. Of course, teams like the Lakers and so many other teams are going to be interested in Kessler if the Jazz start to shop him in the offseason. And I kind of hope they do. I just don't see the Jazz as being a team that is going to compete while Kessler is still young and he's going to be heading into the prime of his career sooner than later. Kessler this season, 11.5 points, 12.3 rebounds, 2.5 blocks, 72% from the field this season. Teams are going to want this guy. Other players they could target. Quentin Grimes is an idea. He's been enjoying a breakout stretch with the 76ers, and we're not tackling the East, but who knows what the Sixers do after this season, the whole other thing. So I like that idea. John Collins has a player option next season. They have non-guaranteed contracts heading into next season. So they have a lot of options. They have cap space, they have flexibility, they have assets. They will wait for the lottery to see what happens. They could be a part or a facilitator in some of these large trades this offseason. There's a lot of unanswered questions. But I'll always be a supporter of this team. Won't always be watching them. Haven't watched them as much this season. But I hope that with everything they have and all the assets they have, they can be a team that could compete for a play-in spot next season. I don't see the West getting any easier. Yeah, I think the West has only gotten incrementally better, at least in these last few seasons, or at least in this LeBron era of the Western Conference. So, exciting stuff. Yeah, exciting things. I think they're changing now. I mean, there's basketball being played right now as I speak. So let's leave it there. I hope you all have a great week, and I'll see you next week.